April 6th, that's the deadline. Not a suggestion, not a diplomatic overture dressed in the language of ultimatums. A hard line drawn across the calendar in the language the Pentagon speaks best: mass, range, and the willingness to use both. The Strait of Hormuz, 21 miles at its narrowest point. Roughly 20% of the world's oil moves through that corridor every single day. 17 million barrels. Every sunrise, the tankers move in convoy through the northern lane, the empties return through the southern, and the entire choreography depends on one assumption: that no one closes the door. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard understood this arithmetic years ago. They've been living off its implications ever since. Control the strait, and you don't need to fire a single missile to hold the world economy hostage. You just need to make the door feel fragile enough that the insurance rates do the work for you. For years, that strategy operated in the background. Harassment operations, seizures, close passes on civilian vessels, enough friction to remind the shipping industry who owned the neighborhood, not enough to trigger the response that would end it. That calculation changed. The mines went in first. Quiche Island and the surrounding approaches seeded with high-density naval minefields. Not scattered, not haphazard, but laid with the deliberate geometry of an organization that had studied American mine-clearing doctrine and designed an obstacle course around its limitations. The Guard didn't advertise the deployment. They didn't need to. The effect was self-evident: slow the traffic, raise the insurance rates, remind every tanker captain in the Persian Gulf exactly who controls the floor of that strait. Lloyd's of London adjusted its war risk premiums overnight. Shipping consortiums began rerouting around the Cape. Every day of detour added costs that compounded across supply chains that stretch from Riyadh to Rotterdam. Iran hadn't fired a shot. The economic pressure was already building on its own, but passive denial was only part of the architecture. Beneath the surface, autonomous underwater vehicles moved without acoustic signature. Unmanned submarines threading through the approaches to the strait, mapping shipping lanes, shadowing military vessels, feeding targeting data back to Revolutionary Guard Naval Command. On the surface, fast attack boats and kamikaze vessels made themselves known in a different way, by appearing without warning alongside vessels that had no answer to them. The message was deliberate, every incident a data point in a larger argument Iran was making to the world. Then Tehran made its second move. The Houthis activated the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, the other choke point, the southern entry to the Red Sea, came under sustained drone and missile attack. Iranian coordination was not incidental. It was the mechanism. The targeting data, the drone specifications, the launch windows, all of it flowing through a command architecture that terminated in Tehran. 2 straits, 2 kill zones, the same hand on both switches. Constrict both arteries simultaneously, and the global energy supply chain doesn't slow. It hemorrhages. Brent crude crossed $115 per barrel. Shipping rates spiked. Asian economies that depend on Gulf oil began recalculating their reserve positions. European energy ministers convened emergency sessions. Iran watched all of it and concluded it had achieved exactly what it intended: leverage, a seat at a negotiating table that had previously been arranged to exclude it. The kind of strategic pressure that could force concessions no amount of diplomacy had managed to extract. Iran calculated this would buy leverage. It bought something else entirely. Washington's response did not begin with a phone call. It began with orders cut and aircraft carriers underway. The USS Abraham Lincoln was already conducting continuous operations in the Arabian Sea, its presence a standing fact that the Revolutionary Guard had begun treating as background noise. 2 carrier strike groups in the same theater was a deterrent. One was a statement of intent they had started discounting. The Ford's redeployment to the Mediterranean after its Croatia port call had been read as a signal of American hesitation. Iranian missile and drone attack tempo increased within days of that withdrawal. The Revolutionary Guard had begun to believe they understood Washington's threshold. They were wrong. The USS George Washington departed Norfolk at speed, transiting toward the Persian Gulf to fill the strategic gap. Not quietly. The departure was not disguised. The route was not concealed. Washington wanted Tehran to know the ship was coming, wanted the Guard's intelligence apparatus to spend the hours before its arrival calculating what its presence meant, wanted the psychological weight of its approach to land before the hull appeared on radar. 2 carrier strike groups, more than 150 fifth-generation strike aircraft, now operating within reach of Iran's southern coast. Each carrier functioning as a forward airbase, with its own escort of destroyers, cruisers, and attack submarines. Carrier air wings that can render an adversary's coastal defense architecture effectively blind inside the first hour of sustained operations, before a single radar has time to acquire a track, before a single anti-ship battery has time to rotate to a firing solution. The F-35C carries sensor fusion and electronic warfare capabilities that the systems Iran has deployed along its southern coast were not designed to counter. They were designed to counter the aircraft that came before it. Big mistake. That was the C component. The sky told a different story. RAF Fairford, Gloucestershire, England. In recent weeks, a procession of heavy airframes arrived at that installation in a rhythm that leaves no room for ambiguity. B-52 Stratofortresses taxiing to their hard stands in sequence. B-1B Lancers staged in rows. B-2 Spirits, each one a purpose-built instrument for destroying the exact category of target Iran had spent decades building, present in numbers that Fairford had not seen in a generation. 23 strategic bombers now staged on British soil, fueled, armed, and configured for deep penetration strikes against hardened, deeply buried infrastructure. The B-2s flew first. During night operations throughout March, B-2 Spirit aircraft carrying bunker-defeating munitions executed repeated sorties into Iranian airspace. The GBU-57 Massive Ordnance Penetrator, a weapon that exists for one purpose, the destruction of facilities built specifically to be indestructible, had been loaded, checked, and delivered. 3 underground missile production facilities belonging to the Revolutionary Guard, excavated into mountain bedrock, reinforced with meters of hardened concrete, accessed through tunnels designed to survive the overpressure of near-miss detonations, did not survive. The mountains remained. The facilities inside them did not. A fourth target, a strategic missile storage complex that had been cataloged as one of the Guard's primary reserve positions, was obliterated in the same operational window. The aircraft returned to Whiteman Air Force Base afterward. Iran discovered what was left of its manufacturing infrastructure the following morning. The B-1B Lancers followed. Standoff-range munitions released well outside the engagement envelopes of Iran's air defense network. 2 aircraft. Multiple Iranian underground missile facilities struck with the same clinical precision that had characterized every B-2 mission before them. The Lancers recovered to Fairford. Iran cataloged another entry in its ledger of losses, a ledger that was filling faster than its leadership had anticipated when the mines went into the strait. At sea, the geometry was tightening from a different direction. The United Kingdom had broken a strategic silence that London had maintained for years. The calculation had changed in Whitehall as sharply as it had in Washington, and the British response carried a character that was unmistakably its own. Methodical, integrated, and designed to accomplish a specific operational objective that no other ally in the coalition was positioned to execute. The RFA Lime Bay, an amphibious assault ship configured for the mission with state-of-the-art unmanned mine-hunting boats and underwater drone systems, deployed directly into the operational theater. Its mandate was not ambiguous. The Iranian minefields in the Strait of Hormuz would be cleared. Not negotiated around, not mapped and avoided, cleared. The ship carries autonomous surface vessels equipped with sonar arrays and neutralization systems that operate without putting a single British sailor inside the minefield. Its data links run encrypted and continuous. It does not pause to ask for permission. HMS Anson moved to support it, a nuclear-powered Astute-class attack submarine currently operating in the depths of the Arabian Sea near the Iranian coast. Anson had been on station before the Lime Bay arrived. Its role in the integrated operation was precise. The Anson's sonar suite, among the most sensitive passive detection systems deployed by any navy, can detect Iranian unmanned attack vehicles before they reach the surface, tracking their acoustic profiles through water that the Guard's own operators believe provides concealment. It does not. The Lime Bay's unmanned surface vessels eliminate the threats Anson identifies. The coordination between them is seamless, encrypted, and operating at a speed that human decision cycles cannot match. Together with the Lincoln and Washington carrier task forces, this coalition force has achieved a singular operational capability. Every fast attack boat base along Iran's southern coast, every radar installation, every logistics pier, every coastal surveillance tower, every anti-ship missile battery that the Guard has spent years emplacing along the shoreline with the confidence that the cost of attacking them would be too high for any adversary to bear. All of them are now on a targeting architecture that can strike simultaneously, Tomahawk cruise missiles launched from Anson and the carrier escort destroyers arriving at the same second as strike packages launched from the carrier decks. Iran designed its coastal defense architecture over decades to withstand the first wave of an American attack and fight through it. It was not designed to withstand this one. Nothing in its inventory was built to counter what is currently pointed at it. The A-10 Warthog has already demonstrated what the opening phase looks like. In recent operations, A-10 aircraft have systematically destroyed Iranian fast attack boats and unmanned maritime vehicles throughout the operational zone. The asymmetric naval assets the Guard relies on for harassment operations, for mining operations, for the kind of swarming attack that its doctrine identifies as the counter to American carrier supremacy. Those assets are being removed from the equation methodically, one hull at a time. The Warthog was scheduled for retirement. Events have given it a reason to stay. Meanwhile, in the eastern Mediterranean, a second fleet holds its position in battle formation. France's nuclear-powered aircraft carrier Charles de Gaulle, Italy's ITS Segavre, a European naval contingent that has not announced its intentions loudly, but has made its capabilities available. Destroyers and frigates on high alert, weapon systems in ready configurations, command links open to the American and British networks coordinating the broader operation. EU leadership stated through diplomatic channels that active participation in initial hostilities was not their mandate. European publics were not ready for that conversation. European governments were not prepared to have it. But intent and outcome are not the same thing in the Persian Gulf's brutal mechanics. Iran attacked RAF Akrotiri in early March, British sovereign territory. A strike against a NATO ally's military installation on an island that sits inside what Brussels considers the European security perimeter. The attack was absorbed, the response was measured. A second attack of that character, or something worse, ballistic missiles against Cyprus, a deliberate strike designed to kill European nationals, does not get absorbed the same way. The Mediterranean fleet's defensive posture has a trigger. Tehran knows what it is. The question is whether the regime is rational enough to respect it or desperate enough to ignore it. A cornered adversary that has already lost 3 underground facilities and a missile storage complex to bombers it could not detect, that is watching its fast attack navy dismantled by aircraft it cannot shoot down, that is staring at 2 carrier strike groups and a mine-clearing operation proceeding toward its most strategic waterway. That adversary has a decision to make. The Iranian regime's leadership is not naive about the military equation. They built an asymmetric doctrine precisely because they understood they could not match American conventional power directly. The strategy was designed to raise costs, not to win a straight fight. Drones, ballistic missiles, proxy forces, economic disruption, all of it calibrated to impose pain below the threshold that triggers the full weight of American retaliation. The mines in the Strait, the Houthi activation in the Red Sea. These were asymmetric moves executed with strategic intent. The problem is that the threshold moved. Trump's ultimatum expires April 6th. British Prime Minister Starmer has confirmed that reopening the strait is a non-trivial undertaking, a diplomatic acknowledgement that the process will be difficult even if Iran complies, and a clear signal of how hard it will be if it doesn't. London is prepared to host a 35-nation international security summit the moment hostilities cease. The diplomatic architecture for the aftermath is already being built. What happens before the aftermath is what concerns every military planner currently running targeting packages at Fairford, at the Lincoln, at the Washington, and in the operations center of HMS Anson. If Tehran does not reopen the strait by the deadline, the strikes begin. Iran's energy infrastructure, the oil export terminals that generate the revenue that funds the Revolutionary Guard that laid the mines that started this, goes first. Power generation facilities follow. The underground missile programs that survived March's operations because they were not on that night's target list will not survive the next wave. 5,000 Marines in amphibious assault position are staged for operations against Kish Island and surrounding Revolutionary Guard installations. F-35C strike packages from the Washington will suppress the island's air defenses before the first landing craft reaches the beach. This is not a show of force. A show of force is what the Gerald Ford represented before it left for Croatia. This is a deployment configured for an outcome. Iran built a trap, set it in the world's most critical waterway. Watched the global economy convulse in response. Watched oil prices spike and shipping consortiums reroute and energy ministers panic. Watched Washington calculate its response and concluded it had achieved something durable. The trap is now surrounded by the largest coalition military force assembled in the modern Middle East. 23 heavy bombers on British soil, 2 carrier strike groups with 150 strike aircraft between them, a nuclear submarine clearing a path through Iranian minefields, a European fleet waiting in the Mediterranean for the signal that changes its mandate, and a deadline that expires on April 6th. The strait will reopen, the mines will be cleared, the fast attack boats that remain will stand down or be destroyed. The question Tehran is answering right now, in whatever conversations are happening between its supreme leader and its Revolutionary Guard commanders, and whatever diplomatic back channels remain open, is not whether the strait reopens. The only remaining variable is what Iran looks like when it does.